Hello everybody! Today we're going to learn about simple machines. So open your book up to page 94 and 95 and let's look at some simple machines. So first, does anybody know what effort is? What is effort? Okay, so effort is when you try to do something, okay? So if you're trying really hard, you're putting in a lot of effort. And if you're trying not very hard, you're putting in not much effort, okay? So the reason that we use simple machines is to make something that's really hard a little bit easier, okay? So for example, if you have a super heavy box and you want to take it upstairs, that's a really hard thing to do because it's so heavy. So we can use a simple machine to help us take the box upstairs by taking some of the weight and making it easier for us. Okay, so let's have a look. Simple machines. Objects you use to make work easier are called machines, which all need some form of energy to function, okay? Simple machines are machines which have few or no moving parts. To work, they need the energy from the person using them, okay? So remember, we have simple machines and we have complex machines, and both of them need energy to work. But simple machines, you or the person using it is the energy. So you are using your own energy, whereas complex machines, we have electricity. So there are 6 types of simple machines. We have a pulley, an inclined plane, a screw, a lever, a wedge, and a wheel and axle. Let's have a look at a pulley, okay? So a pulley is used for lifting things or lowering things, like this crane here, okay? And there are 3 parts. We have the load, which is the thing that we're trying to carry, the rope, and the wheel, okay? So we need this rope to go through the wheel for a pulley. Let's have a look at a picture of a pulley. So it's really hard to lift this box because it's so heavy, okay? So we're going to use this rope to help us lift it. So we can have a 1 pulley system, so that means that there's only 1 wheel here that we use to pull through, or a 3 pulley system, we have 1, 2, 3, or a 5 pulley system. The thing is, the more of these pulley bits that we have, the easier it is, okay? So each one takes a little bit of the load, or a little bit, makes it a little bit lighter. So if we only have 1 pulley system, the rope goes from the box through 1. We have more effort, and the more pulleys we have, the least amount of effort we are using. That is a pulley system, okay? So the thing is, if we're pulling this box up, we are making our journey longer but using less effort. And that's the same for all of simple machines, okay? It takes longer to do it because you're going over a longer distance, okay? So there's more space in between where the box is and where it's going, but it's easier. So we're using a longer distance, but it's easier to lift. Okay, let's have a look at inclined planes. inclined planes. It is used for moving objects up and down different levels. So we have this inclined surface, okay? So that means that there's a little bit of a hill, and we put the load, so what we're trying to carry, on top. Like in this picture, we have our inclined surface, means it is not flat, and our load, what we're trying to carry, on top. So this is the inclined surface here. Okay, so instead of lifting the box straight from the ground into the truck, we use an inclined plane to make it easier. Okay, let's have a look at an inclined surface. So the steeper it is, okay, so the bigger angle that it's on means it's harder to push. But if you have a slow inclined, okay, then it would be easier for you to push up. And if you think about it, if you're pushing something, and say you're pushing your bed from one side of your bedroom to the other, your bedroom is flat, and it's much easier to push something when it's flat than it is to push something uphill, isn't it? So if we have a little hill, it's easier to push up than a big hill. That's much harder to push up. Let's have a look at this. This is when we use an inclined surface in real life.
How do we use inclined planes today? In many ways. We use them in dump trucks to lower loads. We use them in homes and buildings to help people go up instead of using stairs. We use them in moving vans to load or unload boxes. Here is the summary of the lesson.
Okay, so that's how we use an inclined plane. Now let's take a look at this. We have a screw. Okay, I'm sure you've all seen a screw before. A screw is used for joining two things together. Okay, there are two parts of a screw. We have an inclined plane, which we just learnt about up here, and a shaft at the top, okay, which helps us screw it in. An inclined plane and a shaft. And if we have a look over on this page at a wedge is used for cutting or pushing things apart. Okay, so a screw is used for joining things together, and a wedge is used for pulling things apart. So, in a wedge, see this point here? We put that into something, and then we add force, and it helps split things apart. Okay, let's have a look at screws and wedges.
Mr. Douglas is using the log to make the table. He needs to chop the log into smaller pieces. To cut the thick log of wood, he has to use a lot of effort force. To make it easier, he is now using a simple machine, the wedge. A wedge is basically an inclined plane. Wedges may have one or two sloping sides. Now let us see how it works. With a knock of the hammer, Mr. Douglas has pushed the wedge into the log. Notice how the effort of pushing it in has caused a spreading force and split the log into two halves? This happens because the force of the hammer pounding on the flat end of the wedge drives the sharp end of the wedge deeper and deeper into the wood. Having cut the log, he needs to scrape off some of the uneven surface with a chisel. A chisel is also a type of wedge. It uses a forward driving force and turns it into a sideways force. The plank is now ready. and so are the legs of the table.
So he just used 2 types of wedges, okay? 2 types of wedges. So he put the pointy bit in, and it was much easier for the wood to split apart. He didn't have to use so much effort. Okay?
Table. To assemble the table, Mr. Douglas is using screws. Look at the screw closely. It is an inclined plane wrapped around a cylinder. Like a wedge, a screw moves into the material. Look, after an
Remember, with a screw, we are joining 2 things together.
initial tap on the head of the big screw, Mr. Douglas is turning the screw. A screw turns a small rotational force into a larger. He is also using some smaller screws to fix the leg properly. The inclined plane of a screw can be steep or shallow. That is, the threads can be far apart, as in a big screw, or close together, as in a smaller screw. The difference is, the farther apart the threads, the faster a screw moves into a material with each turn. But it takes more effort. Looks like the table is almost ready. And with this, we conclude our lesson on wedges and screws.
Okay, so there you go. We have wedges and screws. Also, a lever. This is a lever, okay? A lever is used for pushing an object up or down. So we have this part of a lever called a fulcrum, okay? And it's very important where this fulcrum is, because we are moving our box. That's very heavy, remember? And depending on where this is how much effort we are going to use. So we have the fulcrum, the rigid bar, and our box. Now, if we have a look at this picture, we can see we have our fulcrum here, okay? And it's in the middle. Now, the mouse is going to pull the elephant, which is crazy, okay? That's impossible. The mouse could never lift up an elephant. But we're going to use this simple machine to help take some of the elephant's weight so the mouse can lift him by using this fulcrum, okay? So when we move it back towards the elephant, it makes the elephant lighter so the mouse can lift him. So how does this work? If we have our fulcrum, the closer it is to the load is the more you can pull it down, okay? So you, as a human, are using the effort. You can pull this part down, and this fulcrum is going to help you lift it. Okay? And last one, we have a wheel and an axle. So this is used for transporting. Have a look at this last picture. We have our wheel, and this part here is an axle. Okay? So we all know that it's easier if you have something really heavy and you put it on wheels, it's much easier to push it. Okay, because this axle is where you put the heavy thing and the wheel carries the load for you. Okay, so they are the 6 types of simple machines. We have a pulley, inclined plane, screw, lever, wedge, and wheel and axle. So what I want you to do is do activities 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then watch the next video and we will mark them, okay? So you have a go by yourself in your book. Do activities 1, 2, 3,